Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper spent decades as Hollywood's ultimate cowboy. Tough, laconic, and seemingly untouchable. But beneath the rugged exterior was a man wrestling with something deeper. By the late 1950s, Cooper had reached a turning point. He'd spent years as one of the biggest stars in the world, yet something gnawed at him. As he told Hollywood reporter Ruth Waterbury in 1959, "Coop, old boy, you owe somebody something for all your good fortune." That somebody was God. His journey to faith wasn't a dramatic, last-minute conversion spurred by illness. It was gradual, thoughtful. His daughter, Maria Cooper Janis, recalled, "He was coming to this on his own, in his own time." Cooper, who had been raised in the Episcopal Church, formally converted to Catholicism in 1959. He began attending Mass regularly with his wife and daughter, not just on holidays, but every Sunday. He struck up a friendship with Father Harold Ford, whom he affectionately called Father Tough Stuff. But faith didn't erase the past. Cooper had been known for his extramarital affairs, including a high-profile romance with Patricia Neal. Some saw his conversion as a genuine act of repentance, while others speculated it was an attempt to make peace with his past. Whatever the truth, Cooper embraced his faith with sincerity. Even as he battled cancer in his final years, he remained steadfast. His last recorded words, "I know that what is happening is God's will. I am not afraid of the future." Jane Wyman. Jane Wyman wasn't just a Hollywood star, she was a woman of deep conviction. At the height of her career, winning an Academy Award in 1949 for Johnny Belinda, she made a choice that set her apart from many of her peers. Faith over fame. Wyman converted to Catholicism in the 1950s, a decision that would shape the rest of her life. While Hollywood was known for its glittering parties and high-profile romances, she preferred the quiet sanctity of daily Mass. Her faith wasn't just personal, it influenced major life decisions, including her separation from Ronald Reagan. Though the official reason for their divorce in 1948 was listed as irreconcilable differences, many biographers suggest that Wyman's deepening religious devotion played a role. Reagan, not a Catholic, had political ambitions that clashed with Wyman's desire for a more private, faith-centered life. She later became a Third-Order Dominican, dedicating herself to prayer, charity, and religious study. Even as she continued acting, including a celebrated role on Falcon Crest in the 1980s, her faith remained central. She once said, "I've always been deeply, deeply religious." Unlike many of her contemporaries, Wyman's legacy wasn't just about the roles she played, it was about the life she chose to lead. Bing Crosby. Bing Crosby wasn't just the smoothest voice of the 20th century. He was a man of unshakable faith. No matter how packed his schedule was, whether he was filming in Hollywood or touring the world, Sunday Mass was non-negotiable. His children later recalled that even on vacation, even in the most remote locations, Crosby would find a church and make sure they attended. Faith wasn't just a private matter for him. It was woven into his music. His rendition of Silent Night, recorded in 1942, became one of the best-selling singles of all time, and his Christmas albums, filled with reverent hymns, still define the holiday season today. But Crosby's devotion wasn't just about appearances. He leaned on prayer and confession to navigate the storms of his personal life, including well-documented struggles with family tensions and personal demons. His son, Gary Crosby, later wrote about how Bing insisted on saying grace before every meal, no matter where they were, whether at home, in a restaurant, or on a film set. He wasn't a saint, and he admitted as much, once saying, "I'm not a good Catholic, but I'm a Catholic." And maybe that's what made his faith so relatable, imperfect but unwavering. Loretta Young. Loretta Young was one of the rare Golden Age actresses who didn't just profess her Catholic faith, she lived it even when it cost her. At a time when Hollywood was known for its glitz scandals and moral flexibility, Young refused roles that clashed with her beliefs, even if they came with hefty paychecks. She once turned down a part because the character was an unrepentant adulteress, saying, "I have to sleep at night." But her faith was tested in ways far beyond the silver screen. In 1935, during the filming of Call of the Wild, Young had a brief affair with Clark Gable, who was married at the time. When she discovered she was pregnant, she faced an impossible choice. In an era when an out-of-wedlock pregnancy could destroy a woman's career, Young disappeared from the public eye, claiming she had fallen ill. Months later, she adopted her own daughter, Judy, in a carefully orchestrated cover-up to protect both her child and her reputation. It wasn't until decades later that Judy Lewis, Young's daughter, publicly confirmed that Gable was her father. Despite the secrecy, Young raised Judy with the Catholic values she held so dearly. She believed in repentance, in redemption, in the idea that faith could guide a person through even the most complicated moral dilemmas, and she didn't just keep her beliefs private. She made them part of her work. In the 1950s, she hosted The Loretta Young Show, a television anthology series that often carried strong moral themes. She used her platform to subtly weave in Christian values, reinforcing the idea that Hollywood and faith didn't have to be at odds. Later in life, Young became even more devoted to her faith, dedicating herself to Catholic charities and humanitarian work. She spent her final years deeply involved in philanthropy, proving that for her, faith wasn't just a personal belief, it was a way of life. Danny Thomas. Danny Thomas was a struggling comedian in the 1930s, barely scraping by to support his wife and newborn daughter. Desperate, he knelt in a Detroit church and prayed to St. Jude Thaddeus, the patron saint of hopeless causes. "Help me find my way, and I will build you a shrine," he vowed. Within a year, his career took off, radio gigs, nightclub bookings, and eventually Hollywood. But Thomas never forgot that promise. By the 1950s, he was one of television's biggest stars, headlining Make Room for Daddy. Instead of a shrine, he envisioned something greater, a hospital for children battling catastrophic diseases. Rallying support from fellow entertainers and business leaders, he founded St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee in 1962. The hospital revolutionized childhood cancer treatment, offering care regardless of a family's ability to pay. Thomas remained outspoken about his faith throughout his career. He attended Mass regularly and often credited a prayer for his success. Even in Hollywood, where faith could be an afterthought, he ensured his work aligned with his values. His daughter, actress Marlo Thomas, later recalled, "My father believed in miracles because he lived one." Today, St. Jude stands as a testament to a comedian who kept his word to God and to children in need. Irene Dunne. Irene Dunne wasn't just a Hollywood actress. She saw herself as something more, a woman on a mission. A devout Catholic, she believed her career was a way to honor God, and she lived that belief every single day. While other stars might have chased fame at any cost, Dunne had a different compass guiding her choices. She attended Mass daily, even during her busiest filming schedules, and credited her success to divine guidance. Dunne wasn't afraid to walk away from roles that clashed with her faith. Hollywood presented her with opportunities that could have skyrocketed her career even further, but if a script conflicted with her morals, she turned it down. No hesitation. In an era when actresses were often pressured to conform, she stood firm, proving that faith and success didn't have to be at odds. Off-screen, her devotion extended far beyond personal practice. She poured her energy into Catholic charities, working closely with the church to support those in need. Whether it was fundraising for hospitals or advocating for social causes, Dunne saw her platform as a tool for something greater than herself. She once said, "Prayer is the greatest source of strength, and I rely on it every day." And she meant it. Even after stepping away from Hollywood, Dunne never wavered in her commitment to faith and service. She was more than just a 5-time Oscar nominee. She was a woman who used her influence to reflect the values she held most dear. Pat O'Brien. Pat O'Brien was the kind of actor who could stare down a gangster on screen and make you believe he meant every word. But off-screen, he was a man of unwavering faith, a devout Catholic who never shied away from his beliefs even in the unpredictable world of Hollywood. Born in Milwaukee in 1899, O'Brien was raised in a deeply religious household and attended Marquette Academy, a Catholic school that reinforced his spiritual foundation. That faith stayed with him, even as he made his way to Hollywood in the 1930s, crafting a career built on playing tough, no-nonsense characters. One of his closest friends was fellow actor Spencer Tracy, another Catholic who wrestled with questions of faith. The two would have long conversations about religion, morality, and the pressures of Hollywood. O'Brien, unlike Tracy, never wavered in his devotion. He credited his faith with keeping him grounded, saying, "My faith has been the most important thing in my life." It was a constant, a guiding force that helped him navigate the highs and lows of the industry. Even as Hollywood changed around him, O'Brien remained outspoken about his beliefs. He advocated for Catholic values in entertainment, pushing back against what he saw as the industry's drift away from morality. While some actors kept their faith private, O'Brien wore his on his sleeve. He wasn't just a tough guy in the movies, he was tough in his convictions too. Ann Miller. Ann Miller wasn't just a dazzling tap dancer, she was a woman of unshakable faith. Beneath the rapid-fire rhythm of her feet was a heart that leaned on Jesus Christ through every triumph and heartbreak. And heartbreak she had plenty. Miller endured multiple miscarriages, a devastating blow for someone who longed for a family. But instead of drowning in grief, she turned to prayer. She once said, "My faith in God has always been my greatest source of strength." On set, while others studied scripts or chatted between takes, Miller would pull out her Bible. She carried it with her everywhere, flipping through its pages for comfort and guidance. Hollywood, with all its glamour and chaos, never shook her devotion. She believed prayer kept her grounded in an industry that often tested one's soul. As she grew older, Miller became more vocal about her faith, encouraging others to trust in God's plan, no matter how difficult life became. Her story wasn't just about fame and talent, it was about resilience, about finding light in the darkest moments, and about dancing through life with unwavering belief. Don Ameche. Don Ameche was the kind of leading man who didn't just play roles, he lived his values. At the height of his fame in the 1930s and 1940s, when Hollywood was a playground of temptation, Ameche stood apart. A devout Catholic, he attended Mass regularly, even when filming schedules were grueling. Friends and colleagues recalled his deep fascination with theology. He could just as easily hold court on Thomas Aquinas as he could deliver a charming line on screen. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Ameche's devotion extended beyond personal faith. He was fiercely committed to his marriage, a rarity in an industry where infidelity was almost expected. Married to Honore Prendergast for over 50 years, he credited his faith for keeping their bond strong. "Faith is the foundation of everything I do, both on and off the screen," he once said. And he backed that up, not just in words, but in action. Ameche was also a quiet philanthropist, often donating to Catholic charities and supporting religious education programs. He didn't seek publicity for his generosity, but those close to him knew his contributions made a real impact. Even as Hollywood changed around him, he never wavered in his beliefs. When some actors softened their religious stances to fit the times, Ameche remained steadfast. His faith wasn't for show, it was who he was. Jimmy Durante. Jimmy Durante was more than just a comedian with a gravelly voice and a piano-playing style all his own. He was a man of deep faith. Born in February of 1893 in New York's Lower East Side, Durante grew up in a Catholic household, and his belief in God never wavered, even as he climbed the ladder of show business. He was a fixture in vaudeville, radio, and early television, always bringing his signature humor and warmth to audiences. But behind the laughs, Durante carried a quiet devotion that shaped his life and career. He didn't preach from the stage, but his faith was always there, woven into his performances. He would often slip religious themes into his routines, offering subtle nods to his beliefs without ever making a spectacle of them. One of his most famous songs, September Song, carries a reflective, almost prayer-like quality, an introspective piece about the passage of time and the wisdom that comes with it. And when he wasn't performing, he was giving. Durante was known for his generosity, frequently donating to Catholic charities and churches, often without fanfare. His faith wasn't just something he spoke about, it was something he lived. Durante prayed daily, a habit that became even more vital to him after personal tragedies. In 1943, he lost his beloved first wife, Jean Olson, to a sudden illness. The grief was crushing, but he leaned on his faith to pull him through. He later married Margaret Margie Little, and together they continued their charitable work, particularly supporting children's hospitals and orphanages. Even at the height of his fame, Jimmy never let ego take over. "God has given me everything, and I thank him daily," he once said. And he meant it. He remained humble, grounded, and ever grateful, knowing that his success was a gift, not just a personal achievement. By the time he passed away in January of 1980, Jimmy Durante had left behind more than just a legacy of laughter. He had lived a life of kindness, generosity, and unwavering faith. Claudette Colbert. Claudette Colbert was more than just a Hollywood icon. She was a woman of deep conviction. At the height of her career in the 1930s and 40s, she was one of the most bankable stars in the industry, known for her roles in classics like It Happened One Night and Cleopatra. But beyond the glitz and glamour, her Catholic faith was a quiet yet steadfast force in her life. She attended Mass regularly, often slipping into churches unannounced, and before filming pivotal scenes, she would pause to pray, seeking strength and clarity. During World War II, while Hollywood rallied for the war effort in grand publicized gestures, Colbert chose a different path, one of quiet generosity. She discreetly donated to Catholic charities aiding soldiers and war victims, never seeking recognition for her contributions. Her faith wasn't just a private comfort, it was a moral compass that guided her through the pressures of fame. Hollywood in the Golden Age was a dazzling yet morally complex world, and Colbert often spoke about the challenges of staying true to one's values in an industry that demanded compromise. In later years, as the spotlight dimmed, she became more vocal about her belief in Jesus, encouraging younger actors to stay grounded in faith amidst the temptations of celebrity. Though she rarely made public declarations, those who knew her best understood that her faith was more than ritual. It was the foundation of her resilience, the quiet strength behind the starlet's smile. Rosalind Russell. Rosalind Russell was a force, witty, glamorous, and sharp as a blade. But beneath the rapid-fire dialogue and impeccable comedic timing was something deeper, an unshakable devotion to her Catholic faith. Raised in a strict Catholic household, Russell attended the Sacred Heart Convent School in Massachusetts, where discipline and devotion were as much a part of the curriculum as arithmetic and Latin. As she rose to fame in the 1930s and 40s, starring in classics like His Girl Friday and Auntie Mame, Russell never let Hollywood's temptations shake her beliefs. She famously turned down roles that clashed with her morals, refusing to compromise for the sake of a paycheck. In an industry where reinvention was currency, she remained steadfast in her values. But Russell didn't just practice her faith privately, she lived it. She was a tireless advocate for Catholic charities, donating generously to organizations that supported children and the poor. She worked closely with the Sisters of Charity, ensuring that her wealth and influence served a higher purpose beyond the silver screen. Even as illness took its toll in her later years, Russell found solace in prayer. Battling rheumatoid arthritis and later breast cancer, she leaned on her faith, finding strength in her devotion to Jesus Christ. In her final days, she reportedly kept a rosary close, a quiet testament to the belief that had guided her through every triumph and hardship. Fred MacMurray. Fred MacMurray wasn't just the affable father figure America adored. He was a man of deep conviction, a Hollywood rarity who let faith guide his every move. While many actors of his era embraced the glitz and temptations of fame, MacMurray stayed resolutely grounded, crediting his devotion to Jesus Christ for keeping him on the right path. Born in one of the most tumultuous years of the 20th century, 1908, Fred's career spanned decades, from his early days as a saxophonist to becoming one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood. But despite his success, he was never one to compromise his values. When studios dangled villainous roles in front of him, often with hefty paychecks attached, he declined. He refused to portray characters that clashed with his moral compass, even when it meant turning down career-defining opportunities. His faith wasn't just a private matter, it was woven into the fabric of his daily life. He and his wife, actress June Haver, were deeply involved in their church, regularly attending services and Bible studies. Haver, a former nun in training before entering Hollywood, shared MacMurray's devotion, and together they built a home centered on faith and family. Unlike many of his contemporaries, MacMurray avoided the scandals that often plagued Hollywood's elite. He credited his unwavering belief in Christ for keeping him from the pitfalls of fame. No wild parties, no tabloid-worthy affairs. Instead, he prioritized his wife and their 4 adopted children, often retreating to his beloved ranch in California, where he found solace in a simpler, more grounded life. Even as Hollywood evolved and the industry's moral landscape shifted, MacMurray remained steadfast. To him, success wasn't measured by box office numbers or critical acclaim. It was about staying true to his beliefs, honoring his family, and walking the path of faith. In an industry where reinvention was often the key to longevity, MacMurray proved that integrity could be just as powerful a legacy. Greer Garson. Greer Garson wasn't just Hollywood royalty. She was a woman of deep conviction. At the height of her fame in the 1940s, when she won an Oscar for Mrs. Miniver, Garson was known for more than her luminous performances. She was vocal about her Christian faith, often crediting prayer and her belief in Jesus Christ as the foundation of her success. While many stars of the Golden Age navigated the industry's pressures by conforming, Garson held firm to her values. She reportedly turned down roles that clashed with her beliefs, refusing to compromise her principles for a paycheck. Beyond the silver screen, her devotion took tangible form. She was deeply involved in Catholic charities, funding education and healthcare initiatives that supported underserved communities. In later years, as Hollywood's golden glow dimmed, Garson turned her attention even more fully to philanthropy and religious service. She spent much of her time supporting causes that aligned with her faith, proving that for her, belief wasn't just a private matter. It was a lifelong mission. Bob Hope. Bob Hope wasn't just a comedy legend, he was a man of deep conviction. At the height of his fame, when he was cracking jokes on radio, headlining Hollywood blockbusters, and hosting the Academy Awards a record 19 times, Hope remained steadfast in his Catholic faith. No matter where in the world he was, whether performing for troops in the jungles of Vietnam or entertaining presidents at the White House, he made time for Mass. Hope often credited his faith for keeping him grounded in an industry that thrived on excess. "I have seen what success can do to people," he once said, "but faith keeps you humble." And humility wasn't just a talking point for him. It was a way of life. Despite his immense wealth, he quietly donated millions to Catholic charities, funding schools, hospitals, and missions around the world. One of his most notable contributions was to the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C., where he helped finance a chapel in honor of Our Lady of Hope. His devotion wasn't just about personal belief. It was about service. During World War II, he began what would become a lifelong commitment to entertaining American troops, logging over 50 years of USO tours. "I do it because I think God gave me a talent, and I ought to use it to make people happy," he explained. That sense of duty rooted in faith never wavered, even as he aged. At nearly 90 years old, he was still visiting military hospitals, cracking jokes, and lifting spirits. Even in his final years, Hope's faith remained unwavering. He passed away in 2003 at the age of 100, reportedly asking for a priest in his last days. For a man who spent his life making others laugh, his greatest comfort came from something far deeper, his unshakable belief in God. Maureen O'Hara. Maureen O'Hara was never one to back down, on screen or off. Known for playing fiercely independent women in films like The Quiet Man and Miracle on 34th Street, her real-life convictions were just as unshakable, especially when it came to her Catholic faith. Born in Dublin, Ireland, in August 1920, O'Hara was raised in a devout household where Mass wasn't just a Sunday obligation, it was a cornerstone of daily life. And that devotion never wavered, even as she ascended to Hollywood stardom. Unlike many in the industry, O'Hara didn't just privately hold her beliefs, she lived them. She was known to attend Mass regularly, even while filming on location, and she openly spoke about her love for Jesus Christ. But her faith wasn't just about personal comfort, it shaped her career choices. She famously turned down roles that she felt clashed with her values, refusing to compromise for the sake of a paycheck. In a town where reinvention was often the key to longevity, O'Hara's refusal to bend made her stand out. Hollywood wasn't always kind to those who held firm to their beliefs, and O'Hara faced her share of challenges. She endured professional battles, personal heartbreaks, and the ever-changing tides of an industry that often tested her resilience. But she credited her faith as the anchor that kept her steady. In later years, she became a vocal advocate for Catholic education and religious charities, using her platform to support causes close to her heart. Even in her final years, her faith remained a guiding force, a testament to the fiery redhead who never wavered in what she believed. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.